Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Our topic today, we're going to talk about the importance of low demand time. And I just want to put this out there on the table. I'm a little nervous to bring this to a mixed group. So as I get into this, I hope that I can hold enough the side of acute betrayal and PTSD and things that would make this not possible. So if you're finding yourself thinking about your primary relationship and thinking there is no way on God's green earth that we could do this ever or any time, again, remember that the things I talk about in here are not just for intimate relationships. They're for any relationship. So if you find a big roadblock thinking about your primary relationship, if this is not the right time for this, please consider another relationship that is ready for this and could support you by adding some low demand time. So let's talk about what low demand time is. Low demand time is time spent together that doesn't require lots of cognitive or emotional resources. So it's not necessarily relaxing, although the end benefit can be relaxing. I'm going to have some low demand time tonight with some friends. I'm going to go on a mountain bike ride. And my body will be exhausted. I'll probably push some limits, but it doesn't require a lot from me emotionally or cognitively. It's a chance to hang out, a chance to be present. And the overall effect is there's an overall calming effect, or at least a break from the storm effect. So this is really important for relationships. Think about it like trying to build muscle in your arm. You're not going to get big biceps if you don't pay attention to your triceps as well. There's a push and a pull. There's an opposition force that creates balance and structure and stability. When you're in a relationship crisis or your relationship is in crisis, it's really important, I would say, to balance that crisis with some low demand time, because without that, the focus of your relationship becomes crisis, and that turns into a relationship that becomes task oriented. Are we doing this? Are we doing that? Have we solved this problem? Have we solved that problem? And it becomes a slog. So what low demand time does to counteract some of that is it's not the same as putting something on the shelf or pretending like everything's normal or ignoring problems. It's an intentional shift in gears. I can't be in the boxing ring all the time. I need a break from that. If in your primary relationship, some low demand time as defined here, we'll talk about a little more, if that's possible, that's a really, really great practice for you and your partner to be able to come out of the ring and not just go your separate ways, but be able to come out of the ring and catch a breath, have a break, lower the arousal, lower the stress mutually. It can be really, really important, even if that is just for a few minutes, and then you have to jump back in the ring again because your lives are on the line, the relationship is on the line. So again, this is not an ignoring, this is not a we're fine with each other, we're pretending. It's an intentional shift in gears, an intentional break that makes it possible to continue the difficult relationship building work that you're doing. Sometimes you have broken trust so much, or sometimes trust has been broken with you so much that you can't relax in your partner's presence, or you can't relax in one another's presence. I'll outline some ways here. Excuse me. I'll outline some ways here that low demand time doesn't have to be a big deal, but again, it starts to, I look at it almost as like stretching, flexing a stiff joint, where we can start to flex that fear. We can start to flex that PTSD response. Because ultimately, I would say the best way to heal from a trauma, an interpersonal trauma, is if the person who caused it can take on a physician role, if that would be appropriate for the person to make it right with you. So low demand time can be a way to start dipping your toes in the water, to start practicing some of that healing energy when trust has been broken. You both, and I mentioned this earlier, you both may worry that low demand time is shelving, ignoring, pretending like everything is okay. Low demand time actually doesn't work if you use it that way. It becomes a fantasy. It becomes an escape. It becomes a moment where you lie to each other instead of saying, okay, this is what this is. I don't trust you. You don't trust me. But we're going to lower our guns for a minute here and have some lower stress time. This doesn't mean we're okay, but I sure like sharing coffee with you. That feels good. That feels familiar. So again, I'm not suggesting have a time where you just turn off your problems and everything's fine. It's not a solution. It's a support for the really difficult work that you have to do. So some benefits of low demand time. I guess I'll make my case why I think this is a good idea. First of all, if you cannot associate your partner or relationship with calm and safety, it will always be dangerous. It's not going to get better. This is intentional work that couples have to do with each other. The calm and safety isn't just going to come out of nowhere. And it's also, if you're waiting for all of the problems to be cleaned up before you start attempting to produce calm and safety for one another, you're going to be waiting a long time and it's not efficient. Back in my Gottman training days, there was actually a meditation. It was a body scan meditation that they would encourage that you had partners record their voice narrating this meditation for their partner. And then they would, the instructions were before smartphones, but when everybody had a smartphone, it made this a lot easier. Your partner could carry around a guided muscle relaxation meditation in their partner's voice. So there starts to be this association with you and feeling calm. Your voice is something that can bring me down. That has to be practiced, especially if it's been disrupted, if it's been destroyed. It's not just going to come out of nowhere. You have to intentionally lean in that direction. And low demand time starts to do that. It starts to put us in the practice arena of we're just trying to be human beings together. We're trying not to stress each other out, demand on each other, just be with one another in peace. So you all have heard me, if you've been to my webinars before, you've heard me talk about my two dogs. Luna, the 5-year-old poodle, who's too smart for her own good, and then Max, the 3-year-old golden doodle, who's too stupid for his own good. They have a really interesting dynamic. When Max was younger, he was at Luna's heels all the time. Like, she would lay down, he'd come and be like, "Oh, we're wrestling and you're submissive," and he'd bite her on the neck, and she'd get really mad, and they'd wrestle, and there was not a moment of peace. As they've grown up together over the last few years, and as Max has become a little less of a spaz, there are times where I'll see them, they like to lay on the couch, and usually they'll lay on separate arms. There's times where I'll see Max on the arm of the couch and Luna is laying on his back haunches. They're not doing anything. They're not playing. They enjoy the play. They enjoy the wrestle, but there's low demand time. There's trust that's built there. There's comfort that's built there. And that's a really important part of a relationship. Again, I don't think you have to wait till all the problems are cleaned up to be able to find an oasis together, especially if you're both intentional about it. And we'll talk a little later about how to be intentional about that. Another reason why I think low demand time is a good thing, and something that in most cases ought to be worked towards, is vulnerability and authenticity are more naturally, or they emerge more naturally in play states, in low demand states. And I hear couples, particularly betrayed partners, talk a lot of the time about how I want my partner to be vulnerable with me. I want my partner to tell me the truth. we know this from looking at enhanced interrogation techniques and their data. We actually don't get good, reliable information when information comes out of a person when they're stressed. So to push and push and push, and to hope that that will produce honesty and vulnerability for either party, is, again, it's not efficient, and I don't believe it works very well. To learn how to, or to set up rituals and times where you relax in each other's presence. We have coffee together in the morning. We go out to dinner together. We watch TV together. We watch a movie together. We go on walks. We walk the dogs. We garden together. We pursue hobbies and interests together. We have a check-in each night that's not about problems to solve, but it's about witnessing one another. How have you been feeling today? Thank you for sharing. Here's how I've been feeling today. Thank you for listening. There's so many ways we can get to low demand time. This is where our vulnerability and our authenticity, I think, is more encouraged to bubble up. It's hard to bring vulnerability and authenticity to the table in a volatile situation. So the low demand rituals encourage that to come up in a more natural way, a more authentic way. It builds a lot of safety with each other. When you slow down a process, you can really watch one another. You can anticipate. You can get feedback from one another about what feels dangerous and what feels good. Low demand time, by its very nature, is slow in pace. So the guys that I'm going to ride with tonight, they're the guys I'm going to race with in July in my bike race. And, on race day, our focus is a little different than on these rides. On these rides, it's basically how's it feeling and where do you want to go? And then we talk along the way. On race day, it's do you think you're going to beat your goal time? And again, it's much more outcome oriented. Versus these times, it's play together. We learn how to trust each other here. Another reason why I think this is important is you are ultimately responsible to know everything about your partner, including what brings them enjoyment, relaxation, fun, peace, and to use what you know to co-create those states together. So one of the best ways to learn what's relaxing to your partner is to set that as an intention and see how you two do in actually creating that. For example, last year for my anniversary, my spouse and I went to Jackson Hole. And one of the things I wanted to do was ride bikes in Teton National Park. They've got bike paths all over the place, and the gate nearest to Jackson Hole has really good access to the path. So we brought our bikes. We got on the bikes and we rode, maybe 4 or 5 miles together. And we got to, those of you who've been there, you would know Jenny Lake. We got to Jenny Lake and, got out and walked around, and we even tried to hike to the waterfall. But it was getting dark and storm clouds were rolling in. And if any of you have been in storms in Teton or Yellowstone, there's not drizzles. These are like, it's torrential, and you might get struck by lightning. And usually it hails at the same time that it rains, like even in the middle of summer. So it's kind of intense. So I see these clouds rolling in. We're looking at the time. We're not close to the waterfall. We decide to go back to the bikes. We get on the bikes and we start riding, and the wind starts blowing and the rain starts falling. And immediately we're soaked to the bone, and we hear thunder. And, I'm smiling because this reminds me of my reckless adventure days. And, it's a taste of that, we're going to have such a story to tell, so we're riding and I'm talking and making jokes, and I look over at my spouse. Her knuckles are white. Her body is tense. And, she has this look like, what situation have you gotten us into? What have you dragged me into? And she said at one point, unless you're telling me how to ride faster and to not die in this, I don't want you talking right now. That was an opportunity for me to learn, situations like that. I would actually say the ultimate result, especially if I'm with someone that I really like and I trust, it's low demand. As stressful as it might be, It's this like, yeah, we'll find our way through. It'll be great. It's not that way for my, it's so important for me to know that with my partner when she is stressed. I shouldn't be suggesting, well, let's go on a hike, let's go on a run, let's, go float the river. I should be suggesting things like, tell me something good you want to eat. Let me get your favorite blanket and I'll rub your feet while we talk or watch a movie. That comes from a lot of trial and error. A lot of times that we've experimented with what would be relaxing, and what wouldn't, and you learn as you go, and then you get better at crafting those opportunities. She knows for me, if she wants to get me to relax, she's got to put me in a scenario to blow off steam. She's learned over the years to recommend I go take a nap when I'm stressed. Is the worst thing that she can recommend. It doesn't de-stress me. It makes me feel worse. But she says, why don't you go ride your bike? Do you want to go for a hike? You want to come outside and sit with me by the fire? Like, there's all sorts of things that we've learned about each other from practicing that. So that's a benefit that comes from trying to practice low demand time. You will learn a lot. You'll learn a lot more, especially if you're willing to learn from your failures and not take them as, well, that was catastrophic, but really do the autopsy. Okay, what happened there? Why didn't that work very well? What assumptions did I make about you that I shouldn't? You'll learn a ton. So some things to consider, some practical steps in instituting low demand time. First, I'm going to speak to those of you in the audience who have done some betraying. First, I'd have you consider, do you make it possible for your partner to relax in your presence? Do you know what your face is doing at all times? Do you know what your tone of voice means to your partner? Do you know what your sudden movements mean to your partner? This might sound weird or it might sound nitpicky, but if you've done some heavy duty betraying and you've caused trauma to your partner, tone of voice, the way your face looks and the way that your body moves are huge factors in whether or not or how much your partner gets triggered in your presence. So are you able to come out of your own, like, well, this is just how I am, and move into a spot, well, this is how I need to be in order to care for the person I'm trying to care for. I can't just give what I think is good. I have to give what's actually good for my partner. So if you're the betrayer and you want this, you have to keep looking at what's your role in making it possible for your partner to relax. And if you're in a place where you can go where you can go back to the refrain, I'm doing everything that I can and they don't want this, you're not doing everything that you can. That's an escape. That's an exit ramp. If you want to get really, really good at caring for your partner, stay with it even when it's difficult. Don't throw up your hands and walk away. That's a very uncaring thing to do. Now I'm going to speak to those of you who have been betrayed. Do you feel a part of you that wants to be close? Most people, most betrayed folks, they get confused by that. I'm so mad at you. I'm so hurt by you. But there's a part of me that still wants to be close to you. That's not a defect. You're not crazy. You also don't have to fully surrender to that part. I would look at that as a spark. I would look at that as an ember that you might want to keep protected so that it doesn't go all the way out. And you might want to try to ignite something every now and then with that. Ignite something within limits that feels safe so that your world does not catch on fire. Can you honor that appropriately? Honoring that part of you appropriately would include knowing specific times and limits that you have for being close. I can hold your hand, but I don't feel good with your arm around me. Can you honor that? Can you let yourself go to the hand holding and say to your partner, that's enough? A lot of couples, immediately after and through the process of recovering for betrayal, they want to have sex with each other. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that, as long as both of you know, time, quantity, intent, purpose, all of that. What are the bounds that are actually good for me, that don't make me pull back from this part of me that wants to be connected? But again, it kind of nurtures it, it fosters it. It's much like trying to get your leg strong again after you've broken it. Just because you want to run a marathon the day you get out of the cast is not the day you run the marathon. You get really good at monitoring, how is my leg doing? How strong is it? What are the indicators that I need to rest? For those of you who have been betrayed, that's how you honor that part of you, is you may allow yourself to follow it and know when you've had enough. The Goldilocks zone, what's just right for me. Can you focus on your own experience, not just your partner? That's another thing that I think makes low demand time for a lot of betrayed partners, is I'm watching you to see what you're going to do next, and that's not enjoyable for me. That's why I don't want to spend time with you. So here's where, those of you who have done the betraying, this is where it's really, really important for you. If you want your partner to be able to relax in your presence, learn how to monitor and manage yourself. Don't leave it up to them to tell you when they think you're coming on too strong, or when they think that you're, too angry, or, too aggressive. Learn how to monitor that yourself so your partner can relax into their own experience and enjoy that instead of having to watch you. For the couple, do you have old low demand rituals that are still possible? Some of the ways that you used to relax together might be triggering. Well, we used to go out, to concerts, but then I found out that my partner was fantasizing the whole time, or would use opportunities to, find acting out partners. Maybe that's not possible. But do you have rituals like coffee together? Do you have a time where you go out together? Do you have religious observances? Do you have I think of one guy that I work with. I'm really jealous of his morning routine. They get up, they make coffee, they get his girlfriend's daughter off to school, and then they sit in bed and they read and talk for about an hour. That's how they start every morning. So you might want to look in the past. Do we have some low demand rituals that we could still do? Are there any that we would be willing to protect? Again, say we want to keep this intact. We want to keep practicing this. And just like with anything, coupleship in recovery, if it starts feeling unsafe, or it feels like, I'm overwhelmed here, communicate about that. I'm not gonna be able to finish my cup of coffee with you this morning. I'm sorry. Some things came up inside of me I need to work on. Are you both clear and in agreement on why low demand time is or is not a good idea in your relationship? If you have one party pushing for it and another party resisting, you're going to set up this like party animal prude dynamic, and nobody wants to be either one of those. So respect each other, talk about it. If you can't imagine doing that right now with your partner, be honest about that. I can't do that with you right now. Like I said earlier, think about another relationship, a friendship, someone from your support groups, a dog, a cat. Think about somebody else that you could practice some of that low demand time with. And you might want to let each other in on that. We're not able to do this together, but here's what it's like for me when I, take the dog on a walk, or here's what it's like for me when I talk to my sponsor. Again, you can teach each other about how to manage each other without having to force that. The last thing I would say to consider is, can you set up a low demand ritual or a time that you both treat as sacred? It doesn't have to be long. Like I've said a couple of times, a cup of coffee. It could be the check-in. It could be the way we greet each other when we, come in from our days, and, kind of a decompressing breathing together. Reading in the same room can even be low demand time. You don't have to interact. I mean, that's ultimate low demand time, right? I don't even have to look at you, but we're in a spot where we're both focused on, kind of calm and presence. So those would be things I would encourage you to consider if this is something that catches your attention, something that you need. And like I said in the beginning, this is not just for romantic relationships. As corny as I think they can be, I think office parties, they can serve a purpose. We work hard together. We do stressful things together. We do need to be able to let off some steam as well. We do need to be able to play together. So that's my case for low demand time.
Thank you, John. I think I took more notes on this than in any session we've ever had. I wrote a bunch of questions down, but you addressed most of them. So you mentioned that it is okay to kind of sit quietly and not talk. Do some people prefer? I know that I prefer that.
Yeah.
Like low stress healing for me is I can be in the same room with you, but I want to read my book, or whatever. Is that like beginner low stress, or is that advanced low stress, or does it depend on the person? I mean,
it totally depends on the person. I'd say that has more to do with an attachment style. Folks who are more islandish, that's great connection time for them. We're in the same room, there's proximity, but we don't necessarily have to be, intertwined the whole time. For someone who's maybe a little more wavish, a little more anxious in their attachment, that could be hell. So again, as you put this together, it's not that that's a good idea for everybody. It's if it's a good idea for your coupleship, that'd be great. The way that, my spouse and I read in the same room is, I usually get pretty engrossed in my book, and she usually pauses every couple paragraphs to tell me something. Sometimes it's related to what she's reading, and sometimes it's just a thought comes in. And the way we navigate that is when one of us wants to talk, we've agreed, the other one closes the book and we listen. I tend to reach towards her less often, but it's not about, you've interrupted me too many times. I know the exercise right there is not getting through my book. The exercise is having time around one another, where there's easy access if either one of us need it.
So the opposite of this to me is something that I hear couples or couples therapists talk about all the time, which is we need to have a date night where we don't talk about recovery, where we just go bowling and eat pizza. Mm-hmm. Is this the same thing? Is this also, low demand time, or is it higher? Does it depend on the couple? I mean, where are we with this?
I would say it's in the same vein. The reason why I call this low demand time and not just time where you don't talk about recovery is because you can get 3 minutes of low demand time that's effective, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. You can even have like low demand areas in your home. We don't discuss recovery in the kitchen because, we both really like food and eating, and we don't want that place to be associated there. So the whole like go get pizza and bowl and don't talk about recovery, that may be a really good low demand setup for some couples. For some, it may be too long. It might be too public. It might be, you have to negotiate how to get in and out of that too. So getting into the low demand time, if it's we've been stonewalling one another for 2 or 3 days, and now we say, oh, why don't we go get pizza and go bowling? Like that's not a very good entrance into low demand time. That's avoidance. Or at the end of low demand time, hey, thank you for providing that for me. Thank you for relaxing with me. Ding the bell. All right, we're back in the ring. If we need to go into this, I'm ready for it. We can. So the way you negotiate getting in and out, I think, is also something to consider. Not just do we have big grand gestures. Some couples can't go hours in an evening not talking about recovery because that's too anxiety provoking. So the goal isn't to take huge steps; it's to take little effective steps, the most effective steps you can. And sometimes it's not a whole evening that's off limits for recovery.
Yeah. And then, you mentioned, the last question you brought up, can you set up a ritual or a time that's essentially non-negotiable? How can a couple communicate with each other? This is what I need. This is what I need. And one of them wants to do the bowling and pizza, and the other one wants to sit in the room and just read a book. I mean, how does a couple? It would seem stressful to and demanding to set up low demand time. So how can that be accomplished in a low demand way, or can it?
Yeah, there's some ways to make it lower demand. I think first of all is recognizing that to get a good arrangement between two people, it has to be good for both parties. So if you throw on the table, let's do pizza and bowling, and you know already that like that stresses your partner out, that's probably not a great thing to offer. Or if you could read silently for hours and ignore your partner and that doesn't feel good for them, probably not a great thing to offer. Move on to another arrangement. You have to find something that works well for both of you, not just we tried to mash up what we both want. So I read my book in the bowling alley and you bowl and have pizza. Like that's not what negotiation is. That's not what good coupleship is. So you can make it lower demand by, if you realize that your ask is falling flat, what's behind your ask is a principle. It's not that you have to bowl and have pizza. It's that you like having fun. So come up with some other ideas, or say to your partner, I want to have fun with you. What sounds fun to you? Um, you can make it lower demand if it's not somebody's going to get their way. It's, we are going to discover a space together that will work really well for both of us.
Yeah. So different people are going to need different things. Like when you said a guided meditation in your partner's voice, I almost had a heart attack. It's like, oh my God, that's the last person I want guiding me through a meditation
Yeah.
and trying to calm me. I was like, oh no, that would be really counterproductive for me.
Yeah. I'm giving the spectrum here. So take I wish I taught principles more frequently. I try to illustrate principles with examples. Those examples aren't prescriptions. They're here's the principle in action. It could be part of how you create calm and safety for each other. If you're a couple that in the past has relied on like your physicality to whether that's romantic or touching or even hovering over one another's space, if you relied on that to make yourself feel better and it doesn't make your partner feel better, part of how you might give them the gift of feeling calm in their presence is you might keep an appropriate respectful distance until you're invited in. It can go a lot of different ways.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I brought this up is, all of this stuff that I brought up, it's about the principle of, just because it's relaxing for you, it might not be for me, or vice versa. We need to find something that works for both of us if we're going to have this sort of low stress healing time,
You have
which I
to
think is incredibly important. I mean, otherwise, as you said, it's all crisis.
Yeah, you have to think from your partner's perspective as well as your own. That's how you start solid agreements. Is I've not only gotten clear on what I want, I've also thought about how that might feel to you.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'm going to go to the Q&A feature. So my last question is, when are you going to write a book? And also, I'm going to suggest that this chapter be called the Goldilocks Zone, because
The Goldilocks Zone.
I've never heard that phrase, and I was just like, oh my God, got to keep that one.
I think I steal Goldilocks Zone from astronomy. Earth is in a Goldilocks zone, not too far away, not too close to the sun. As far as writing a book goes, I'll tell you, Scott, that is like the most intimidating thing I can think of.
Especially with 3 kids,
I mean, it's not even that. It's the whole like, I don't know, I can do these and these feel good, but if I were to put it in print, oh my.
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna work on you. I see somebody did the electronic raising of the hand. We don't do that in the webinars, but type your question into the Q&A feature and we will be happy to answer it for you. Speaking of the Q&A feature, says, hello, my sex addict husband is 7 months sober, but in my opinion, he is not in recovery. He goes to one 12-step meeting a week, and that's all he does. I had a boundary that I will not be physical with him. I assume that means sexual, until I feel safe, but he was very pushy and I got tired of saying no because he would always go into shame and stonewall me for weeks. So now we are being physical. Again, I assume this means sexual, and he's being extra nice to me. I'm not really comfortable with being physical at this stage, but I don't want to go back to having an angry, shameful, stonewalling husband. How do I go about this? That is an excellent question. And I can't wait to hear John's answer.
Yeah, so for me, this dovetails with what Scott and I were just talking about, the arrangement that works going both ways. It sounds like this arrangement works great for your husband. And maybe it is calming and soothing to him and he can be nice and, all of that. It sounds like a terrible arrangement for you. So how I would recommend going about this, just like that. Hey, it seems to be that as we've gotten back to a physical relationship, it seems to be that that feels great for you and it works for you. I'm glad. There are two sides to this relationship, two parts, and it has to work in both ways. Let me tell you that this is not the best arrangement for me. I think you could get really specific behaviorally about what's going on. So you could stay away from the personal attacks. You could say, I've asked you not to push me for sex, and you have. That doesn't feel good to me. I feel like one of the main reasons why I'm having sex with you is because if I don't, I feel like you get angry, shameful, and stonewalling. And that's the part of this agreement that doesn't feel good for me. Maybe this is a little too strong language, but it kind of feels like you might be experiencing, it's like I'm having sex with a gun to my head, because if I don't, it's going to go off. And I think you can factually bring that up. I'd like to find an arrangement where whether I say yes or no to you with sex, you can be nice to me like you are. I like that part. That feels good. I would like us to be able to work on that. I hope you're in individual therapy. I hope you're in couples therapy. This would be a great thing to bring to both places. You could encourage your spouse to bring this to individual therapy. My wife has given me feedback that when she says no to sex, this stuff comes up for me. You can make a request. I'd like you to process that. I'd like you to talk about it. Could we talk to our couples therapist about this? At the end of the day, what I see with a lot of folks who have been betrayed, they're not looking to just have the upper hand in the relationship. They just want something that works both ways. And I think you can really advocate for that. This has got to work both ways. And right now it's not working very well for me. So I would like your cooperation in making an arrangement that feels great for both of us.
Yeah. I teach a lot of our work groups for sex addicts online, and I rarely get mad at the guys. One of the things that I get mad at them about is they're pushing their wives for sex.
Yeah.
And the wife is saying no, and it shames me so much. And I'm like, why would your wife want to have sex with you right now? What have you done that she wants to literally physically open herself up to you and also emotionally open herself up to you? I mean, why would she want to be that vulnerable with you right now? What have you done to re-earn her trust? How could she possibly feel safe with you?
I'm in agreement with you, Scott. This issue boils my blood too. Like there's very few things I feel, angry at my addicted clients about, and this is one of them. Another way to look at this too is healing from sexual addiction is not just putting all of your sex inside your marriage and treating it the same way. I mean, you could look at anger, shame, and stonewalling as withdrawal symptoms. So I don't know if your husband is listening here, but my appeal there would be, if that is what comes up for you when someone says no to having sex with you, I would really encourage you to go back and keep re-examining your relationship with sex, because that sounds like there's some unhealthy dependency on this to feel okay. And I'll be the first person in line to say sex can make us feel great. It can be awesome for our self-esteem, and it should be. But if it is such a make or break scenario, there is still some what's the word I'm looking for? There's still some unhealthy dependency on sex, and you haven't done yourself all the favors you could in your recovery. by examining what that connection is and what you're still relying on sex for the stability. Healthy recovery isn't just, I don't need sex. It occupies the right time and place for me. I get all the benefit without the consequence because I know how to use it.
Yeah, I mean, you probably heard either me or John or somebody say sex addiction is not about sex. Sex addiction is about I'm feeling lonely or bored or anxious or stressed, and I don't want to feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how sex addicts use sex. So I'm having a bad day. I go home. I pressure you for sex because I need to feel validated or I need to escape my feelings. That's not good sex. That's not healthy sex. It's not even fun sex, or at least not fun sex for both of you. Healthy sex starts with I'm feeling emotionally connected with you. And maybe we could celebrate, if you're feeling the same, maybe we could celebrate that by feeling physically, intimate with each other as well. Sex isn't the glue that helps us feel the intimacy. It's the glue that cements the intimacy that's already there. And if you're pushing for sex, if somebody's pushing for sex, the other person's not feeling it, and probably not a good time. I want to ask you one more quick question that's in here. My husband's 7 months sober, but in my opinion, not in recovery. She says he goes to one meeting a week, and that's all he does. How do you feel about that? Does he need to do more? Can some people get by with one meeting a week? What are your thoughts?
I'm working with a guy right now. You actually know him, Scott. I'm working with a guy right now, and I'm really trying to get him to go to meetings. He has a lot of reasons to be nervous. There's relational trauma and all that. Right. And one of the things that we've talked about is as he goes, I call it auditing the meetings. Right now, you're in an audit phase. You're looking what's out there and seeing how it might be beneficial for you. And I said, if you do like 3 weeks of twice a week audit, what would you expect to see from going to these meetings that would indicate to you that this is worth pursuing further? And he said, I noticed even after going to one meeting, I could delay cravings for 48 hours because I was thinking about what people were saying in the meetings. And, it helped kind of create this buffer. And he said, I also noticed that there was a couple people in there that I thought, like, I think I could learn from you. And he went through a list of things that he would need to see. And I said, okay, I'm going to send you this list. And I want you to take this with you. And this is what you're looking for. This is what you want to see happen, even just a little bit. And I said, if that's not happening, we either need to look at, are you keeping your commitment to go to the meetings you said you would? Or is this really not the right direction for you? But we won't know unless you keep you're saying at 3 meetings a week, I should be experiencing this, and you experience it after one. So I think we have a solid setup here. So as far as like how many meetings you go to, I think that really depends on, am I getting what I need to be getting out of the meetings? And that's a question for the addict, and that's a question for the spouse as well. One of the things that I read in here further in this question, like, if there's not sex, he's angry, shameful. That tells me he doesn't have a lot of tools in his toolbox to deal with his feelings. And meetings are full of tools. So, as the spouse here, you may be looking at, he may say, I feel fine with one meeting a week. Great.
But I don't.
Yeah, you're coming up short because you're still relying on me for something that's actually really, really hard for me to provide for you. Yeah. So fill it in with something else. Start with meetings. Let's see if that helps. I would say in early recovery, and this is the way it was for me, the more meetings I could get, the better. I had to stop looking at them as an inconvenience and a punishment, and more like, this is crazy that almost any time of the day I can call in and get really good medicine for what I'm dealing with.
Yeah, totally agree. I am a betrayed partner. My husband is in good recovery, though still within the first year. We do try to set aside some time for low demand and non-recovery activities. However, if I get unexpectedly triggered and need to talk, I want to be able to do so. Thoughts?
Great. Yeah. So this reminds me, my 12-year-old came home from school about a week ago, and they'd run the mile at school. And he told me his time, and he said, I want to get my time 2 minutes faster. Do you think I could do that? Or no, he said, I have a goal. And this was his goal. And I said, yeah, you want to get started on that tomorrow? He's like, well, what would we do? And I said, I need to get back to trail running, and you want to work on your goal. What if we did that together? You could be my running partner. And so we've been doing the Couch to 5K program. Those of you that are familiar, it's an interval program. You walk for so long and you run for so long. And he reminds me a lot of when I was his age, like trying to run and be athletic. Like my body was just not built for it, not cooperative. And he gets stitches in his side. It starts to hurt after a while. And I've told him again, based on my experience learning how to run, I said, don't push it. We're not going for speed. Consistency is going to get us there faster than pushing through barriers. So I tell him, when you get a knot in your side, you're going to stretch it out and you're going to focus on breathing deep. And if that happens in the middle of the run, tell me, I'll slow down or I'll stop running. We can walk. We're not slaves to the clock here. Those are the principles I would say that are at play here. It's okay if you get triggered. That's actually kind of the point. Not that you should be getting triggered, but that these moments should hold what's needed. And if it needs to shift from low demand time to I'm triggered, the question I would ask you, do you know the effective ways to talk about your triggers? Does your partner know the effective ways to receive that? If so, is it a big deal? It's like stopping to tie your shoes. Is it a big deal to say, I got to stop and tie my shoes? I'm sorry, I know we were in the middle of a run. Or is it the smart thing to do? Let's slow down. Sorry, something came up. Can we address this? And then see how it feels. Do we want to go back to low demand time? Are we done with that? Again, it's that whole, like the purpose is to hold everybody well. Being able to stop and effectively deal with a trigger, that can also support your partner well, because they can demonstrate their competency, they can demonstrate their care, they can do a good job at a difficult thing. Again, if you both know what to do in those situations.
Yeah, and check out the previous several webinars with Jon's name on them for advice on how to pause and communicate that, because we've covered a lot of it. Next one, just have to comment on how calming your voice is, Jon. I agree. It's a wonderful voice. I am so glad this next question came, because I was going to ask it, but I wanted to get into this so somebody else asked it. Could you talk more about nurturing the ember of desired connection? I'm a trade partner. My husband has been in recovery for 6 months. I would like to eventually resume our sexual relationship. Right now, he's not pressuring me in any way. I am worried that it's too soon. Are there recommended timeframes around this? D-Day was about a year ago, and the last sexual encounter was just before that.
I know why people ask for timeframes, because it's comforting to know, like, after this period of time, I should be able to go to the next thing. I don't have a time frame for you. I would just say that phrase, too soon. I would encourage you to examine that. Why do you feel like it's too soon? Is your body telling you I'm not ready? And if so, how does your body send you that message? Can you lean into that? Can you explore that with your therapist? If I think about, there are some things that if we push and it gets broken, it's not a big deal. Like if I push my training a little bit and I get a little bit of tendonitis, I know how to deal with that, not a big deal. Your sexuality, however, if you push that and you damage that, that is kind of a big deal. That's hard to repair. So I call them growth edges. The way that we grow is not staying safely, in the middle where there's no stress or push, and it's also not blowing past our limits. It's right there on the edge of what I'm comfortable with. And for you, that growth edge may be talking about the desire. I want this eventually, but I'm worried, or I'm not ready. I once worked with a couple who their couples therapist made the mistake of, in order to get back into the sexual relationship after betrayal, you need to practice touching each other. And the wife could only do about 3 sessions of that recommendation before she said, you don't get it. Because there's so much more to reinstituting sexual relationship than just how you put your bodies together. So again, that phrase too soon, stay really focused on that, flesh that out. Why does it feel too soon? Can you listen for those answers and honor that?
Yeah. And just to add an extra thought here, sometimes the betrayed partner is ready to resume sex, is feeling safe and ready to resume before the addict is.
Yeah.
Sometimes the addicts will look at it and say, I need more recovery.
Mm-hmm.
I want to resume with you, but I am not ready.
Sex is important, but I have yet to meet anybody who can make it so great that it's worth taking the kind of risk of either of you going to it before you're ready.
Yeah.
You'll get a much better result if both of you, even if you don't get to the point where I feel 100% ready, but you're saying I'm ready to work on this, I'm ready to take the risk, you'll get a much better result when both of you feel that way, than just following one person's lead.
Yeah. Okay, we got one more in time to answer it, I think. The husband, the cheating partner, has stopped seeing the CSAT, and the betrayed partner just found out he lied about his location by saying he was going to work early, but was instead at his apartment. He's planning to move back home this weekend, so he's not living at home. Betrayed partner doesn't know if she should let him move back in.
I would say, what does your boundary plan say about violations of trust like that? Is it a requirement for you right now that they be working with their CSAT, or did you guys mutually agree that he wouldn't see that person anymore? I'm sorry, I can't tell you exactly what to do. That's not my place, number one. But number two, I would need more information to counsel you effectively. But I'd go back to your boundary plan. What did you say the actions would be you'd consider if your partner lied to you? And follow through.
Yeah. And betrayed partners, research shows, are much more hurt about lies and secrets long-term than by any actual sexual or romantic act. It's the covering up of it and the lying and the secret keeping that destroys relationship trust and destroys emotional intimacy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, whether you're comfortable with him moving back into the house or not, you have to decide that. If you have a therapist or support network, get their input. But if you're not feeling safe, you're not feeling safe, and
it's a lot harder to take back from someone something that you've given them than it is to say not quite yet.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm sorry that you're going through that. I'm sorry he's not seeing his CSAT. That's not a get back to the CSAT. And he's not being rigorously honest, because for relationships to heal, this, tell the truth, tell it sooner, tell it all the time, tell it to everyone, not just my betrayed partner. I need to become a rigorously honest person. And until I do that, and my betrayed partner sees me doing that, not only with her or him, but with everyone, there's always going to be, relationship trust is going to continue to be compromised. And there's always before discovery and after discovery. Relationship trust never looks the same, but it can be rebuilt. It just has to be earned this time. Yeah. When we first get in a relationship, of course I'm going to trust you. You haven't given me any reason not to, but now you got to earn it.
Yeah, and I would say, even if trust isn't broken, an earned trust is much more valuable and much more strong than a benefit of the doubt type of a trust. So even couples where there's not betrayal, they actually have to work on understanding why it's a good idea to trust one another.
Yeah.
And they have to make it more concrete than just, well, you haven't screwed me over yet.
And on that note, thank you everybody for being here. Jon, this was a great topic. I really liked it. I will get this posted as quickly as I can if people want to revisit it. It'll be on our YouTube channel and the website, hopefully within the next couple hours. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. Anything you want to say to take us out?
No, just great to be here again. Thanks for the questions, and I'll look forward to next time.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in a couple weeks.